I used to use a liquid softener, but now I've made an amazing discovery. New Bounce. Not a liquid, a sheet that works in the tumble dryer. When Bounce touches Jimmy's pajamas, it leaves them really soft.
Hey, they're really soft.
When Bounce touches Lucy's nylon slips, it eliminates static cling.
Terrific. No cling.
The Bounce touch means longer-lasting freshness. Days later, everything still smells clean and fresh.
Clean and fresh.
My neighbour used a liquid softener, so I told her about Bounce. I used a liquid softener until my neighbour told me about Bounce. The Bounce touch in the tumble dryer makes things nice and soft.
Nice and soft.
The Bounce touch means no static cling.
Look, no cling.
The Bounce touch means days later everything still smells clean and fresh.
Clean and fresh.
Discover the Bounce touch in your tumble dryer. 2 little ducks, 22. Clickety-click.
Buy the Telegraph and Argus, and you could win £300. Each day, match the numbers with your bingo card, and bingo! You're in the money. £6,000 must be won, plus a fabulous cruise on the QE2. And there's more. This year, there's 5 new editions of the Telegraph and Argus, bringing you 30% more local, national, and international news. Each day, still for only 14p.
Kelly's Eye, number 1.
So look out for your card. Buy the Bradford Telegraph and Argus, and bingo!
I told you, it's white with pink.
No, it's pink with white.
Sunset Mist.
It's definitely white, with a bit of pink.
It's pink with white.
Sunset Mist, one of 6 new misty shades from Crown.
Well, I say it's white with pink.
And I know it's pink with white.
New misty shades, 6 elegant shades of white with colour.
6 delicate shades of colour with white.
That's why you're more at home with Crown.
Gas Today with Sue Lloyd-Roberts telling you about the better-than-ever value at your Gas showroom. Today, gas cookers starting at just £199, fitted and working. £199 and no hidden extras. And these two are only £209, fitted and working. And there are many other fitted and working bargains at Gas. Many models come with a trade-in allowance. There's £80 on this one. Whichever you choose, Gas will install it safely at no extra charge. Remember, you can buy a new cooker for only £199, fitted and working. It's here at Gas Today.
Happy with your wash?
Naturally.
What about close-up?
Well, you wouldn't call it spotless, but you can't shift stains like chocolate sauce without boiling. And I don't boil wash my best tablecloth.
You need Ariel Automatic. It washes close-up clean even when you don't boil wash.
On chocolate? Show me.
Okay. Let's choose a low temperature and wash 2 dirty tablecloths. Now, see these chocolate marks? Look at them close up. Ariel Automatic's advanced biological formula lifts out dirt that ordinary powders leave behind, even without boiling.
Gracious, those marks have disappeared. Look. The knees of Peter's jeans. Even Bobby's messy bib. All the things I can't boil are so much cleaner.
With Ariel Automatic, you can wash close-up clean even when you don't boil wash.
This sign does not mean that you will encounter flying motorcycles. No, this sign indicates a street down which it is illegal to drive a motor vehicle or you may be liable to a fine.
Later tonight, the Leeds Folk Festival features the great crossover group originating from Steel Eye Span, the Maddie Pryor Band, at 11:25.
Match time's in 15 minutes, and again we've found 2 thoroughly entertaining games. In fact, the season's got off to such a great start, it's difficult not to get amongst the goals. Well, it was really thriller-minute stuff at Anfield between Liverpool and Southampton, whose goalkeeper, Peter Shilton, was bombarded from start to finish. On this occasion, though, coming out on top.
And predictably, there were plenty of goals, too, between Stoke City and Luton. And I'll be looking at the day's most controversial incident.
So another great lineup with 17 goals, including Fulham against Leeds.
You're watching Yorkshire Television, where now we go over to ITN for the news at 8 minutes past 10.
Massive Tel Aviv protest against Israel's conduct in Lebanon. The Beirut peacekeepers won't go in until the Israelis leave. SPG police officers face assault charges after Brixton riots. and the Philadelphia gunman who killed 13 people. Good evening. Up to 250,000 demonstrators packed the center of Tel Aviv tonight to protest against the massacre of Palestinian refugees in Beirut. The demonstrators also demanded the withdrawal of Israeli troops from Lebanon. And in Beirut itself, the peacekeeping operation is ground to a halt because the Israelis are refusing to pull out. They say they'll stay to the end of the week. In Tel Aviv tonight, police arrested several uniformed soldiers who took part in the rally.
The organisers reckoned it was the biggest rally Israel has seen. They'd hoped for 250,000 people and claimed that's what they got. A safer figure might be around 100,000. But it was still impressive, not just for the numbers, but for the different groups who came. The mainstream were supporters of the Parliamentary Labour Alignment and the Peace Now movement, but there are also clearly many without party affiliations, and a group of Israeli Arabs who called for friendship with Israeli Jews. The targets of the protest were two men. The Prime Minister first, Mr. Begin, and his Defence Minister, General Sharon. What the speakers, including the opposition leader, Mr. Shimon Peres, called for was the government's resignation in the wake of the Beirut massacres, and two, for the establishment of a full state commission of inquiry into the government's and the army's role in that massacre. Mr. Begin's offer of an inquiry without legal authority has done little to silence the opposition's demands, and he's planning to strike back with his own rally next week. It would be a mistake to think that this kind of mass demonstration is going to sweep Mr. Begin from power or persuade him to set up a state inquiry into the massacre. He still has a great many supporters, and those things will only happen if there are defections or threatened defections from his government. Derek Taylor, ITN, Tel Aviv.
The Americans, French and the Italians have told Israel their peacekeeping troops will not take up positions in Beirut until all Israeli forces leave the city. Italian and American troops have refused to land in Beirut.
While the bulk of the peacekeeping force waits offshore tonight, 700 French troops who are already in the city are being kept at their ambassador's residence. 350 paratroopers and Marine commandos arrived yesterday. Despite the snag, the rest came into the port this afternoon, and they were watched by Israelis in 5 armoured personnel carriers. But the French will not be deployed until the rest of the 3,000-strong force is able to join them. They're being held up because Israel insists that their patrols, which are also at the airport, should continue to have the freedom to enter West Beirut whenever they want. The Italians should already have been ashore by now, and their ambassador says that both they and the Americans will not disembark until the Israelis have abandoned all their positions. Brent Sadler, ITN, West Beirut.
Bodies are still being recovered from the ruins of the Palestinian camps in West Beirut. They're being buried in mass graves nearby. Brent Sadler was at one of the burial ceremonies.
In the ruins of Sabra, they are still praying for the dead. The mullah has lost count of the times he's performed these burial rites, or the numbers of pathetic bundles he's seen laid out in front of him on the sand. It is grotesque in every sense. Even the appearance of those who move the bodies is disturbing, but necessary if they're to prevent an epidemic. These victims will never be identified. It's difficult enough to recognize some of the remains as human beings, let alone the features that someone might know. No one volunteers for these duties. Lebanese army medics are ordered to do it. While ambulances hurry along the dusty road which divides the ruins of the two camps, Palestinian survivors wander aimlessly behind. A woman holds her baby in the same way in which many murdered women and children were found. Their misery is incalculable. This woman searches the rotting corpses every day looking for her family. They've told her there's no hope. For these people, no inquiry or recriminations will bring back their dead. Brent Sadler, ITN, at the Sabra refugee camp.
In the United States, a prison officer has surrendered to police after shooting dead 13 people, including 7 children, some his own. He's said to have used an M16 rifle. The man, George Banks, had barricaded himself in a house for 6 hours after the killings at Wilkes-Barre in Pennsylvania.
At a small mobile home park, he killed 4 people, 2 adults, 2 children, then headed to a house in a city not far away. There, he took the lives of 5 adults and 4 children, a total of 13 people dead. The man holed up in a house on the other side of town. He was heavily armed with automatic weapons and reportedly hand grenades. Police surrounded the area, attempted to negotiate with him, but eventually it was a friend of his, also a former correctional officer, a former prison guard, who talked him into surrendering. There are unconfirmed reports that the man was getting mental health treatment. But the exact reason for all this carnage, this bloody violence, tonight still isn't known.
6 Special Patrol Group police officers are to appear in court next month, charged with assaulting 3 young people during the Brixton riots in April last year. The 6 constables, including a policewoman, also face charges of conspiring to pervert the course of justice. The charges were brought following an internal police inquiry. Scotland Yard say the alleged victims' names have been withheld to protect their families. The Social Democrats leader, Mr. Roy Jenkins, told the Liberals at the close of their assembly in Bournemouth that the 2 parties should stop quarrelling and concentrate on winning seats in Parliament. He said the alliance had an opportunity now which wouldn't come again for more than half a generation.
We are, both of us, and thousands of others too, determined not to let it slip. That means that we must regard the argument about seats as finally over. We must accept that we both have a fair deal and make it stick. And having settled our own affairs, we must turn outwards to the public. Both in the SDP and in the Alliance, we have been too internally occupied for much of 1982.
More than 4 people in 5 think nurses deserve a higher pay offer, 83% according to an opinion poll in tomorrow's Sunday Times. 70% think health service ancillary workers should also get more than their present offer. In another poll in tomorrow's Sunday Telegraph, 60% of people questioned thought Mr. Michael Foot should step down as Labour leader, but many of them couldn't think of a successor. Miners' union delegates have defied their president, Mr. Arthur Scargill, and have decided to support Mr. Michael Foot's campaign against the left-wing militant tendency. They've decided to vote for a register of approved political groups which could exclude militant to the Labour Party conference on Monday. The NUM delegates' vote by 25 to 20 is a major boost for the Labour leader, Mr. Foot. Mr. Scargill said he was disappointed. Mrs. Thatcher, on her last full day in China, has launched a 27,000-ton tanker in the harbour of Shanghai. The ship was made in China with money from Hong Kong, a diplomatic success, despite the Prime Minister's small setback with the traditional bottle of champagne.
Mrs. Thatcher had been brought here by Hong Kong millionaire Sir Y.K. Pao, who was born in Shanghai, fled before the Communist Revolution, but has now come back to use Shanghai labour to build his ships. He's sometimes described as the Chinese leader's favourite capitalist and as a useful intermediary. By a rather complicated arrangement, Mrs. Thatcher had to cut a rope with a tiny axe to break the traditional champagne bottle. The fact that it stayed firmly unbroken wasn't going to spoil such an improbable event as this, and as the millionaire pointed out, it had broken the second time around. Mrs. Thatcher described it all as a symbol of the close relations between Britain, China and Hong Kong, a pointed remark in the light of the controversy over the future of the territory. For the Chinese, it's an example of their increasingly open attitude to other countries, and that's nowhere better seen than in the busy port of Shanghai, which handles so much of China's trade with the outside world. Glenn Mathias, ITN, Shanghai.
And some Middle East news just in. We've just heard that 4 United Nations military observers have been killed near Beirut after their jeep hit a mine. There are no other details at the moment. The attempt to raise the Mary Rose from its grave in the Solent went another step further today. The steel cradle